Hey everyone, it's Clever Sighted, and I figured I'd make a montage video just a little bit different this time. The very first montage video that I put up was me just getting a little bit of ice shots and learning about how the Frost Gauntlet really works. And I had only played just for about a week or so. But now I've put in about 3.5 days worth of playtime so far, as I'm recording this voiceover, and it's starting to grow on me. I think once I put the time in, I will start to get a hang of it as the game balances itself out, since the game has been its full release 1.0 for quite some time, maybe a couple months. So as I learn the game and the game evolves and I learn with it as it evolves, I think the skill is going to come a little bit more, because most of the people who are already good at the game went and played when it was pre-alpha, alpha, beta, and then full release. Now people like Base Ghosty, Marcus aka Apostle, they've had their hands on this game and played it for more than the general public, give or take 2,000 hours, give or take. And some of the things that I've noticed whenever I'm playing it is that some gauntlets outweigh other gauntlets, but some gauntlets can be more underwhelming. But it's just all about the right combination of gauntlets and what you use for your primary and secondary. And right now my favorite is Frost, because you not really find much of a challenge if you're gonna go with conduit and a controller. Even though they dumbed it down already, it's still a little bit easier to use once you're still using controller up close. But I like Frost, and I used to like, as we see here, Frost and Stone. Now it's not a bad combination. You can get some kills with it if you are keeping them away from the air with your ice shots. They're forced to stay on the ground. But Stone is also the quote-unquote noob killer, and this gameplay that we're seeing can just go on a little bit while we talk. It was probably a hectic round, as we see here, for the next minute or so. So when you use Frost and Stone at the same time, I liked that combination first starting out, and then I evolved to a little bit of a different, more progressive combo, which is Ice and Toxic, and that kind of grew on me. And I fell in love with it a little bit more than what we currently see here as I use Stone, because it's not necessarily you're going up against more people who are evolving in the game as I am, so they learn to outplay Stone, and it becomes just a little less useful than, say, Toxic. And also, if you run with other people, you're gonna be having the combo of Dragonfire as well if you use Toxic. So that is the one thing that you could do. Now with Frost, because it's one of my favorite gauntlets, I still got to learn how to aim, when to drag down. I'm getting way better than I used to, only because of the fact that I used to flick so much more than I do now, and it's showing. So some of the things that I learn progresses on, and I apply that to a lot of games that I've played, like Rainbow Six Siege. I have about 1,600 hours in that game, and right now it's just gotten to be to the fact where it's pretty much the same thing over and over and over again, and it gets a little bit boring. Hopefully with this game it's not like that, and it starts to evolve to a little bit more balancing issues, which it seems like it is. They're already taking that to account when they took the patch for the controller and this aim assist in towards conduit. They knew that was a game breaker, and they wanted to get that out of the way and help out a little bit, but not so much take it away, because the controller players still need to be a little bit in control when it comes to conduit and consoles. And as I play solos more, I'm starting to learn how to do one-on-one engagements, which helps me out in squads the most. And there are some combinations that I don't quite care for personally whenever I'm playing, because I still need to learn how to predict people's moves, say with Pyromancer and Toxic combination. Now I'm getting better with Toxic when it comes to this clip right here. Things with Dragonfire combination, which is Pyromancer and Toxic, I'm just not getting used to it right now because I've probably not put in enough practice to judge people's movements along with the Pyroblasts. And I know that can be in a daily combination only because it's been used against me countless times, and I've used it just a few times and I've only gotten just a little bit of success, only because it's not the right play style for me, and I know that it can be quite dangerous. So I'm just gonna leave that for now and come back to it later once I get a little bit more adjusted to the game mechanics and how other gauntlets work in Unison. One other gauntlet that I know that works in Unison with pretty much any other gauntlet, and which means that it's quite diverse, is it's going to be one of those Tempest gauntlet mains. I mean, you can use that to your advantage pretty much with anything, whether it be lightning, fire, or toxic, but it doesn't work with the other two, which is stone and frost, which is fine because you need a little bit of extra balance in the game. Now, sometimes you meet guys like this and you just want them to fool around, and I just happen to be teabagging a lot, and I found that it was pretty funny that this guy sometimes can be, it's not necessarily all serious, and you don't always have to be the gunning for people. And you know, even base Ghosty sometimes was like that, and I always get into his games not by purpose, on purpose, but on sometimes by accident. And sometimes people just don't care about being serious and sweating all the time. Very quiet. Hunting a rabbit. And sometimes the game can have breaking bugs, as we see here, which is still fine because it's still trying to work out its kinks. But then later on, during the entire 2 minutes I was doing this, they gave an error to the server, and then I lagged out. So it could have been something with on my end rather than the game. So there's still some things that the game needs to work out in my mind, and it's slowly coming up. It's slowly coming there to where it needs to be. And just like any other game, I know that I've played the second most played game in my inventory, or I should say in my library, is Dead by Daylight. And of course, at the very beginning, that game was quite broken and needing a lot of balancing issues. Not necessarily this doesn't have broken balancing issues. I just think that there's some things that they can tweak here and there, and they've got great community people to work on it, such as Marcus being one of the top voices. Not necessarily he is the Bible on this, but he knows exactly what is nerfed, or what needs to be nerfed, what needs to be buffed a little bit, what needs to be changed. And he actually sometimes does play with devs, and I think that's a good thing that the devs put time in, is going with their content creators. Now, it's great when devs do this. They make sure that after pre-alpha, alpha, and beta, that there's still testing, quote unquote, going on, because people are really testing it still. Once they make changes and they see different things that need to go with other balance issues or bugs, and they get that from live feedback from their most trusted people on Twitch and YouTube, and then it's still a little bit like sub known, I guess. Some of the biggest streamers have played it, like XQC, Shroud, Dr. Disrespect. Now, given that Dr. Disrespect only played a couple games, but they've only played the beginning stages, and they probably were turned off with how the game feels, and they need to wait until the game actually flourishes a little bit more with the initial launch, with more balancing issues and bug fixes after those 3 versions of the game. And having the community to have a voice to tell them this is really great, I think. I also think that the game offers a lot in terms of its map. You get a little bit of everything when it comes to it. You get some things that can cancel out some things in terms of gauntlets. Like some gauntlets are stronger in some areas than others. And you want to counter some of their gauntlets in buildings with, like, say, conduit or maybe stone. But yet that doesn't really work out when it comes with flushing people out with toxic or maybe pyromancer. And you won't really do that much with frost or tempest. But there's some areas that you have to recognize to bring other people to. Like, I'm getting sandwiched here in this clip. I need to be able to take people out of where they are the most comfortable in their gauntlet and where I need to be the most comfortable with my gauntlet, which is I need more open area to be able to hit the shots, or maybe, just maybe, hit them with a toxic slap in close quarters, which is why this build is so great. And I think the diversity of the build is all builds comes later on, and they've said that in their roadmap, which I think that's also great, is having the devs communicate with roadmaps, always having a plan to tell the people what is going on so they don't lose interest. And they say later on they're going to have more gauntlets, but then they don't want extra balancing issues to come through, and they know that if they're going to put them in too early when the game is sort of vulnerable. It's vulnerable in a way that, okay, you don't need to put in extra content, but you need to make sure that the content and balancing are in a, I guess you could say, a balanced state. You're going to make sure that both are done equally. So I think that the game in its current state is actually really, really fun. There's nothing game breaking until they solved it right now, which right now I'm going against this conduit user here, and it's still insanely strong. And I honestly don't know how I lucked out with killing this guy, but I think that one day that they're gonna actually get the handle on the game, and it's gonna be great. All right, as we round down, the final thought that I have for this video is what I take away from the game, and I think it's one of the better BRs out there in my mind, even though it might not be the most popular, because like I said, it's sub-known. People know about it, but they really haven't tried it out. And they may be, if they have tried out, they may be turned off by it. Because it's not like all the other ones where it's AAA shooters and stuff like that. So if the people that are new, they get turned off by it, they need to recognize some of the skill gap is there with some of the gauntlets. Now, if you like it and you want to try it and you want to get better, know that, like me, I wasn't hiding. You need to make sure you take those solo fights because you need that skill to learn. Now, if you hide all the time and you just want the win, know that people at the end, they're going to have more skill because they've been fighting more technically. So you make sure that you need to hit those solo fights as often as you can. As I do for this guy, I'm a little bit more aggressive and I get the win as well. All right, guys, that's my final thoughts. If you guys like this, please like and subscribe, and it means so much for me. I'm going to possibly make more videos in the future. Thanks.